Wait, where's Tony? Is he upstairs?
Hello there. Looks like we're streaming live now. Today's going to be opposed to 8 max, 6 max, so we'll see a lot more blood, a lot more pots. Christian, you excited for version of the day with 6 max?
I wonder if they're gonna keep folding the 3 bets.
Probably not as much.
Man, you ready for this?
Oh,
4 hours,
I'm
6 max.
I'm so ready. Yeah. It'll be so much more fun to commentate. I mean, we're going to see way more post flop spots, and I think we're going to see a lot more maybe vengeful play, little more ego. That would be my guess.
I like rivalries.
Yeah.
I like a little bit of blood out there.
Yeah.
How you feeling?
Oh man, I'm feeling excellent.
He brought a notepad.
I'm gonna
or
take
a paper pad.
I'm gonna take some serious notes. Like any good poker player should. Poker commentator.
I have no notepad.
Oh no, I got you a notepad. Got you a
Never
paper right
mind.
here.
They got All right, guys. So we're gonna commentate for about 4 hours with a break in between, and this is just hands now with a little partnership going on that we'll talk more about, I'm sure, in the upcoming days.
Yeah.
All
Yeah,
right.
it's gonna be great.
Just hands life.
Just hands life. Did you say live or life? Because I said life. Okay. All right, we're ready.
So yeah, they already started. We got a raise from Matt with 4s under the gun. We got Patrick calling on the button with 6-4, just getting in there. Mark is not folding the king jack off. Oh wow. Patrick flops a very good flop for him. I think we're gonna probably see 2 checks, a bet, and 2 folds. But yeah, when you call a 6-4 suit on the button, this is the flop you want to see, or one of them.
Yeah, definitely. Hold on, guys. They're setting me up here. We're still in the early stages of. All right. So 6-4 diamonds, Patrick. All right, he's defending that button. That's something I kind of want to see. It's okay. Maybe he doesn't want to 3-bet that, but it's still a very playable hand, especially 250 big blind deep. It's gonna be interesting to see the difference between yesterday and today. Like yesterday, there was a very solid play, a very 3-bet heavy game. The interesting part about it, though, today is that I think that the 3-bets will be fought a little bit harder today. So it's going to be interesting in terms of adjustments, like how they construct today. So I think the 3-bets yesterday were like working a lot. And I kind of like harped on that a little bit. Like people were under defending to the 3-bet. Today I feel like they expect more 3-bets. Given that it's a shorter handed game, but because of that, their fight propensity will go up too. So it's interesting to see how they're gonna do that. Danny here, I didn't really get to see play. That's Danny.
That's John.
Sorry.
Yeah,
Danny is seat 1.
Oh, okay, sorry.
John's in the middle. Yeah.
I apologize. No, I said Danny on the screen for a second.
Okay.
Yeah, I didn't really get to see play, so it's gonna be interesting to see how he approaches. I mean, he seems like he's part of your crew, so like I assume he's like well studied and stuff.
Yeah, John. John's a good friend of ours, an excellent poker player.
He's been pro for a little over a year now, I think, full time.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
One of our regular guests on the Just Hands Poker podcast.
Well, he's not a guest in this hand. He's part of it.
Yeah, it looks like we're flying a little blind right now, but
So it was raised 3-bet call.
Yeah.
Flop goes 9-8 deuce. Check check. Turns a 4. I can't really see suits, but I think there was a two-tone flop.
yeah, it looks like it's 2 spades, 2 clubs. Hard to say.
Is that a diamond in the middle? Well,
Yeah,
We will find out.
yeah.
And now we see a bet. And quick fold. Curious to see like what hand that was that defended the button that found the check back on flop and then quick fold on turn. Because if it's, I guess it's like king queen suited.
Yeah, a lot of broadways
Right.
there. I think John's calling with all suited broadways in that spot, deep, small blind 3-bet. Well, I guess with Jack 10, he's obviously not folding on an 8-9.
Right, so even
And then-
like
and then
queen
with,
jack,
Queen
might
10,
bet.
Queen Jack, like is
Yeah.
gonna do something probably. Then check
Right,
back
so
and
it's
fold.
like it's probably king queen.
all right, we got the stream up and running, or not the stream, but the hands again.
So this is Daniel. And I saw a little bit of it yesterday. I thought he played pretty well.
Yeah.
We got some camera adjustments going on.
Yeah, we got to make sure we get them like nice on frame. You know?
Yeah.
This is a nice angle. You see, like this is a really nice dealer, really nice pink shirt. I really like it.
Matt
Matt's,
looking to 3-bet from
Yeah,
the small blind.
so Matt yesterday watched the stream and saw how he underdefended to 3-bets and saw what we said about it. So it does not surprise me that he takes a good 3-betting candidate and goes for it here. That being said, I'm really not a big fan of the sizing here. I think when you're out of position,
This
you
deep,
go,
just bump it up.
yeah, go closer to 4.5x.
and this is what I'm saying. I think yesterday King 9 suited would have folded, and now today we're seeing King 9 suited defend the
Daniel's
3-bet.
never folded into
Okay, that's fine.
just a little bit more, but I see what you're
Yeah.
saying, yeah.
Matt with the continuation bet.
I think this is a decent one. I like that he's sized up on the flop, and he's like kind of just like done with the hand if he gets called.
Yeah, I was gonna say at most a one and done since you really have no.
Right. That's kind of why he's sized up, I think, a little bit because he knows he's one and done. It's kind of when I'm like mostly one and done. I try to size up a little bit to mostly just like protect myself from not barreling anymore. Because I understand, like, okay, I sized up. He continued. Like, I should be done with this hand.
Yeah.
That's sometimes the problem with like down betting. Like, you down bet and now you kind of
Yeah,
you're like, well, I
shitty
mean,
hand and
he
your
could have
opponent is still in the pot.
right. He's like,
Yeah.
well, as like he's kind of wide. Like you're just like, well, he could have anything. I didn't bet that big.
Something I do a lot, I find that is pretty effective at the 2-5 level, exploiting players that are too wide pre-flop, too wide on the flop, and then like never put in more than 100 without good cards on the turn, which is not so. I don't know about down betting, betting closer to half pot on a lot of boards on the flop, and then doing a lot of double barreling on the turn.
I like that for sure.
To kind of almost get value with my bluffs.
Wow, they threw the straddle on already.
I think it might have just been Patrick straddling.
Oh,
Jack and I both play with. Jackie, you haven't played with Patrick yet, right?
No, I've never played with Patrick.
Played with Patrick in some underground games in New York, and definitely is no stranger to the straddle.
huh. Real interesting stuff going on today. Yeah, like I think this game is gonna play a little different than yesterday. Like
Yeah, I think for sure.
I feel like this game is like the dynamic between these two guys on screen right here is gonna be like
John and Mark.
yeah, like
Yeah.
like I already feel like there's like a rivalry, like them two, like they both want to prove that they're better than the other. They're both like the younger ones, and they both have a little bit of like something to prove. Like, yeah, I don't know. I just want to build these storylines in my head so that like if it pans out, like it's great.
So Danny just folded 5-3 suited on the button, and I think Danny probably has a little bit less 6-max experience than a lot of the players at the table, and just kind of wanted to play a little bit tight, not get into spots that he's not as comfortable with. But that being said, when it's fold you on the button in a 6-max game, I think you really have to be opening 5-3 suited.
I think that's fair. Yeah, especially if you think you have an edge in position.
Well, I mean, even without that much of an edge, I think
Yeah, it kind of depends. Like if the big blind is somebody that's like really tough and always defends,
Yeah.
I wouldn't open the hand. Like I wouldn't open that hand against like Berkey in the big blind. Like it's just like too tough. Like he's just not gonna let you win. Like
Yeah.
he's just gonna defend like king 5 off, and like he's not gonna overfold ever. So then it's a tough spot.
Yeah. Fair enough.
So it's like against like like against someone that plays like straightforward, maybe just you could definitely do it.
Patrick, I would just bet the flop. I don't see any reason to check it back.
Yeah, I agree.
So to add a little bit to the storyline, last night Mark took Jack for a ton of money in a heads-up match. So I think Mark is feeling pretty good about his game. He played very well on stream. You know, he absolutely just destroyed Jack.
Wow.
So I think we're gonna see some good play from Mark today.
And Jack is the one I was saying.
Jack is the guy to your right.
This one.
The poker commentator.
Oh, sorry. I was thinking about players playing.
That's fair.
yeah.
I know it's surprising.
Plus, I didn't think he would beat him.
I didn't either.
Wow.
Rematch is scheduled.
Wow, that should have been on stream.
Yeah.
What's a lot? What's a lot? Like 500?
400 bigs.
Wow.
Well, we bumped it up at the end. So,
No, but still, 400 bigs. He annihilated you.
he annihilated me. Yeah.
Doesn't matter what stakes you were playing. It could have been 5 cents, 10 cents. Doesn't matter.
So I think we
I
saw
wish it was 5 cents.
kind of eight from the beginning, being the standard race size, and looks like people are kind of following that. And I think sizing down if you're going to be playing a lot of pots makes sense. I think 8 would be my standard size of a table like this, maybe 7. Pretty standard. Danny opens queens. John defends king jack off in the big.
Expect the check call here. Check, $10, call.
You think it should be a call here?
I think so. Like he's c-betting range here. Like you do have the jack of spades. You have king high. Like it's fine.
Yep.
Like you're probably beating some hands. Now you kind of have to check fold. But I think defending that hand's like reasonable.
Yeah.
It's not. It's not like
It's
fist pump.
It's like it's like one of your worst calls, but it's still a private call.
I think that check back on the turn is like pretty nitty.
Yeah, I think Dan needs to be getting value from a lot of worse pairs, from ace highs with gutters. Like there's just a lot of hands that I think Danny can get value from there. And
but I know it worked out. Go.
So what do you think of the bluff from John on the river there?
So it's interesting. I think it's like, so theoretically this is kind of the worst one of the worst hands he gets to the river with. So it's reasonable. Not having the jack of spades is better, but it kind of doesn't matter because I expect my opponent to like double barrel spades, but maybe he's not since he's checking back queens.
I think he would. I think a lot of opponents would double barrel. What we've been saying is like people get funky with
made hands.
Yeah, they just get funky. Like you just don't want to bet it.
Right. Yeah, that makes sense. I think king jack's kind of reasonable there. It would be better if he didn't have a spade, but
yeah, the 7 coming in on the turn makes a lot of like
a lot of his floats
worst
fill.
Floats, yeah.
Yeah, so now it's like
stronger. Yeah.
So
yeah, I guess this is definitely one of the worst hands you have.
So we see Matt open Jack 9 suited and the hijack or under the gun. I think fairly standard open. Probably don't want to be doing it 100% of the time at a tough table like this, but especially with the dynamics from yesterday, Matt wanting to make sure he's not folding too much. Very reasonable to do this.
I think he should actually fold to this.
Yeah, I think he should fold. I think he might call just because we've been talking. Oh, good fold, Matt.
Yeah, good fold.
You recognize the difference between this and the sort of situations that we were discussing yesterday.
Right.
He's also out of position. He hasn't played against Patrick before.
Out of position, facing a big bet against an unknown.
Right.
Yeah.
But if he had Jack 10 suited, he should call.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Just gonna put that out there because I'm afraid, like he folded a little too easily. Like I want you to just even think about it. Like every single time you get 3-bet, just like first think like, okay, why should I call? And then once you figure out like there's not enough reasons, then fold.
I think you thought about it during Mark's tank with ace 8.
Yeah, that's fair.
Oh yeah, and he was in the low jack, not in the hijack.
I have to pick my favorite for today. I don't know. I like this kid.
John?
Yeah, I like John. I don't know why. Like he fought me yesterday a little bit on that ace queen hand. So like, I like where his head's at. It's like I know a little bit of poker too. All right, I'm gonna go with John.
John with the disciplined fold of 6 deuce.
Yeah, I'm gonna go with John. Can't go with Mark because he beat you yesterday. So
So, well, I'm definitely going with Mark as a result of that. So we see Patrick limp 9-7 off in the cutoff. I think it should just be a fold. In this game, you're definitely going to be, I think, taken advantage of, especially by someone like John in the on the button when you start limping really bad hands in the cutoff.
there's a lot of things right now that I don't like. Patrick should probably always fold.
Yeah.
And Matt should be just like leading flop.
Yes. Yeah.
This hand, like, I see why you're check raising. You have a flush draw versus a limp range, but this is just gonna perform better as just you betting and
Okay.
getting called sometimes, and you betting again on turns. And it's just a very natural bet situation. Your hand, when you face the check raise here, like, doesn't turn great. So when you turn the 8, he also usually turns equity with you. He's also still not folding his queen X's. So you're going to feel incentivized to barrel the 8 because you pick up equity, but his range as a whole is not folding.
So Matt was the one who check raised.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying.
Okay.
Oh, wait.
Oh,
Matt didn't. Matt wasn't.
Oh,
Matt check raised, right?
Yeah.
With a flush
Sorry,
draw.
Matt
sorry,
check raised.
Sorry, I was.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that's what I'm saying. So his check raise, like, when he picks up equity, like the 5 or the 8 on the turn, he's going to
Okay.
feel incentivized to continue. However, think about what you're targeting. You're targeting the middling portion of the range, is that's what you're trying to get to fold. But that equity improved. So that range is not folding, and we're not targeting a queen, right? We don't expect a queen to fold. So it's kind of like pretty poor in terms of like moving forward in the hand.
Did Patrick win that hand?
No, he folded.
Okay.
Yeah, he bet 5 with middle pair and folded to the check raise. Which it's a tough thing where it's like this is what happens when you have way too many hands.
Yeah.
Pre-flop is it's not a great situation, but I think that's probably the best way to play it, bet and folding that hand. But
Right.
He shouldn't have that many middle pairs to begin with.
Correct. I agree. Definitely. I also might just like not fold getting check raised there on that board. It's like
but
you
yeah,
just
but this is the problem. It's like when you have some if you're not folding that hand, then I think you're just way over defending and probably getting abused.
Having the 9's not a great card.
Yeah.
Yeah, but it's like, what does the other guy have?
You could have
Just like so many draws there.
Mostly draws.
Yeah, it's like
Just
a lot of draws.
It's just a question of
I think. I mean,
you're just
I also
you're not
I
in
would
good shape against
definitely
other
you're
draws.
this is definitely one of your worst calls, but I think you should just like flick it in and force him to make tough decisions. Sometimes it's good to force your opponent into unknown spots. Like how often is your opponent there check raising with a wide range? And I'm pretty sure he's not constructed well enough in that spot. So like just flicking in the call and putting him in uncomfortable spot, moving forward is pretty good. Now, granted, I think the defender is probably not in that spot a lot either. So maybe it is better to fold, but like, you got to step out on the streets a little bit. Like, you call and like put him in unknown territory, and it might work out for you. I think there's a clear 3-bet for Danny here.
Yeah.
Now, it's close, right? Because like they're still pretty deep, but like 10s, in a 6-max game where the button's like just opening a ridiculous amount of hands is probably just a pretty clear 3-bet.
Yeah, it definitely should be a 3-bet here.
I would like to see him like consider leading here sometimes. Now it's kind of tough if you start facing raises, but like you could fairly easily bet call. Oh, I like his lead here.
Yeah.
So in Matt's shoes, I think he could consider peeling this. You do have back to flush draw, back to straight draw, and over. You could consider firing in some raises sometimes. Both are options. Turn 8 of spades is really interesting. I think Danny should continue betting. This board is still helping his perceived range a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
And then I think Matt should consider raising this turn.
I think Matt should 100% raise. Like if you're peeling, you want to see this card, and then you want to exercise your fold equity and raise here. So I hope Matt opts to go for a raise.
Yeah, and I hope that Danny calls his raise.
This puts some strong hands in Matt's range.
Both players have improved
actually
ranges now.
I don't think that's actually an all-in bet.
Yeah, the all-in is not
it's
correct.
definitely a misclick. Okay, so I think we should see a raise here, and I think that it is coming. unless that's a call.
40.
That could be a call.
Go to.
So this is
Looks like it was a raise. So looks like Danny bet probably pretty small then.
Maybe bet. I'm trying to think how small I would have had to bet for 40 to be the raise.
Probably 15 or something. Get Mark's head out of the way. See what Danny. Looks like Danny called the 40, so he bet. I don't know. I would guess 15.
I would like to see a really large wager from Matt on the river, assuming he doesn't fill. Never mind. No, never mind. He did fill.
Just get there.
Getting there is part of the process too. Like, it's one of the options allowed in the game. So now that he does fill, I think that like his bluffs now are like kind of rare. So he should probably be betting like closer to half pot, targeting like 9x's, things like that. Like, it's really hard for him to have bluffs here. Like when he raises the turn, like, I mean, and spades fill, like it's kind of tough. Like, so I would be betting something at half pot, target a 9. I think betting too big here is a mistake.
I think Danny is considering betting.
This is not good.
Yeah. So do you think Danny, if he weren't to bet, I think this is definitely reasonable to check fold against a half pot bet. Like, you're blocking.
You're blocking some of your opponent's bluffs, but you're also blocking a little bit of his value.
Now you're blocking the value of the 10s.
Right, but like the 10 of spade in your hand is much, much better than not having it, because you block some of his value on the river, which were like some of his semi bluffs would be like Jack 10 of spades, Queen Jack of spades,
Yeah.
Things like that. So having the 10 of spades block some of his value on the river. Now this lead is just like, it's not good. Because what did you think he raised you on the turn with that you are trying to bluff? Like aces? Like,
Oh, so we see a really big raise here.
I would raise big here.
Yeah. I was gonna say, like, for this sizing, when you have less than 200 behind, I might split my range here between like an all-in sizing or maybe like a smaller raise size, where this is a size in which he could really never gonna be folding to an additional raise, you know. That being said, having the second nuts, I think I just prefer a little bit of a smaller raise to value target like 2 pairs.
it feels like Danny has 2 pair. I agree.
Yeah.
Like nothing else really makes sense, unless he has Queen 10 of spades. But that's like a straight flush, so it doesn't matter. Like you can't. Yeah. Really interesting. I think the real question is like, why is Danny leading? Because that's really the problem. Like I think Matt's played his hand perfectly well. Like he floated, he raised, he got there, and then he raised. But Danny, I think, played the hand pretty interestingly. Like he didn't 3-bet, which is fine, whatever. You chose to take a different line pre, and keeping your range a little bit more pulled from out of position, which is fine, whatever. Then you chose to lead, which I like. Then it started to get weird, right? Then he chose like a really weird turn sizing, right? A really small one. And then Matt responded with a small raise. And then he called. And then the river filled the Jack of spades, and then he led. So like things got a little bit murky closer to as the game tree kept expanding, right? And I think I think the focal point needs to be, when Danny leads, what is your plan moving forward in the hand? So don't just lead because you have an overpair. Lead because a number of reasons, like your board, like the board. What is your plan on future streets? Like what is your bet sizing on future streets? Like start thinking from the river backwards, right? So once you see the flop was 9-5-2 or not, something like that.
Yeah, 953, I think.
Yeah, 9-5-3. Okay. What are certain rivers and turns that we're gonna keep betting on? So like, what am I doing on and this is how I break it down. What am I doing on big, middle, low? Right? So we lead, face a call. What are we doing on big? What are we doing on middle? What are we doing on low? So like it's easy. Once it comes like Jack or higher, what are you doing? If it comes 5 through 10, what are you doing? And if it comes like 5 through deuce, what are you doing? And make that decision tree and think about it for both turn and river, and it'll make your life much easier, in my opinion.
It's an interesting way to break it down.
Yeah, because all those cards are somewhat similar, you know. Like if you block them into like big, big, middle, low, like those cards are all like somewhat interchangeable. Like the 8, the 7, like whatever.
Right.
So I think that was a problem. Like once he landed on turn, it was like, well, I still have an overpair. I probably should bet for protection. But then he chose like a bad bet size, and then got faced with raise, and then he's like, well, like what's happening is
Right.
this is what it
It's
is.
the uncertainty of that bet size.
It's the reactionary mindset. So instead of him already have had a plan for the 8, right, that comes on the turn, he sees the 8 and then tries to decide what the bet size is. And obviously I don't know him well enough, but this is just a very common thing. Like I have 10s, let's see what the flop is. Oh, flop is low. Okay, I'm gonna bet. Oh, he called. Oh, an 8. And it's like, so now you're just like making decisions on the fly, where he could have just had a plan for the 8, had a plan if he raised, etc. And it's like, and it's clear because like when the river's a jack of spades and he leads, well, that's because you didn't really have a plan for the jack of spades. Like you just like saw the jack of spades and said, oh, maybe I should bet, you know. And obviously I don't know, I'm just making like really broad assumptions of like common player tendencies. I don't know this player. Like it's very likely I'm completely off, or very possible I'm completely off.
Hmm. I think also like the uncertainty. Once you start having uncertainty on one street, you're gonna have uncertainty on future streets, like or even future decision points. Like that small bet on the turn. I think that's where the uncertainty really started. Like, wasn't sure why that sizing. Maybe felt worried that once it got raised that sizing had communicated some sort of weakness, and wasn't sure what that meant. And then I think that's why we had sort of an interesting river decision to lead, and then the tank.
Yeah. And
Ultimately, a good fold.
Yeah, we just saw another kind of standard play. Danny raised an ace on the button when it's folded to him. Daniel 3-bets ace jack off. Danny folds, which even though he's getting a decent price, ace deuce off is one of your worst defends. Just a lot of reverse implied odds there.
I want to see. I think one of the things we're gonna see is a lot of merge 3-betting from out of position. So I would like to see the players respond with more in position 4-bets. Because yesterday we spoke about like in
Right.
position merge 3-bets being like very powerful. However, since the game is short-handed now, they're just gonna get distributed more merge hands out of position. So they're gonna feel incentivized to 3-bet those hands now. And what these players should be thinking about is how often are my opponents merged now from out of position, and can we 4-bet? Nice little shadow here.
Yeah.
So Matt raises pocket queens and looks like it folds around, and he's gonna probably face a call here.
Yep. And this is a hand, go either way, but I think we should be calling most of the time.
Yeah, I agree. It's just especially from Matt. Like Matt's like, he plays it really solid. This should be mostly a check call, but on this board texture facing under the gun, I don't even hate a check fold. She's gonna get barreled off here a lot.
Also, I think Matt should definitely consider checking back here. This is just a really good candidate to bluff catch, 2 streets.
Yeah, I know you guys
Yeah.
like that. I don't like that. I think it's fine, but like now you could just barrel off.
Yeah, the problem though, Christian, is if you're not putting this hand in a check backing range, when you check back, you're just going to be completely abused.
Yeah, I just don't check back.
Yeah. So then you can be exploited by a player by getting check raised really wide if you never check back,
Yeah, I guess that's true. I just don't see us getting check raised ever on King 10-6 often. Like our range is just like way more nutted. than his.
Yeah, that's true, but I think when you're in a game like this, you're playing against players that are capable of check raising boards like this, as they should be. If you never check back on a certain board texture, it's very likely you can get a.
What hands would you check raise here? Like
in Mark's position,
8-7 of clubs or something.
There's a ton of hands, gut shots.
Yeah, but you can't check raise the Broadway gut shots.
Bottom pairs.
But it's gonna be like mostly bottom pair, or like bottom pair
so
and like backdoor.
I think Mark.
missed leading out on the river there.
Yeah.
For sure.
Mark.
When Matt checks back on the turn, I think he has a lot of King X, maybe worse Ace X.
I don't think he should check back the turn either. I
Nine
think
queens.
yeah, like just now you have Queen Jack.
So what are you? So you're turning queens into a bluff now on the turn?
You have third pair.
Yeah, I just think that
If
when you do that, you're then just betting way too much, and
But the turn you're incentivized to bet that turn. I think like you have all ace king, all aces, all kings, and you're betting all those. So when you check back the turn, like you're capping yourself now with a hand that has very minimal showdown value and can't really bluff catch rivers.
So the question is with queens, it's like when you bet there, what are you trying to accomplish? Getting a better hand to fold.
Yeah, you're targeting a 10, or you're releasing the equity of a 10 and not making river mistakes when he bets. Because are you calling a river bet?
Depends on the
block
on the run out.
King
Probably
10,
not, but sometimes you're just not going to win the pot. And Matt had a hand that is just, I think on the flop, one of his best bluff catching candidates for later streets.
Right, but once he chose to bet, now the turn's an ace. You block Queen Jack, which is a very reasonable candidate. You have ace king, aces, and kings in your range. He doesn't, and
we agree that he should be betting a lot on this turn when the ace comes, but that's one of his worst candidates to be doing so with.
Why do you think it's one of his worst candidates? I'm not saying I'm arguing with you. I'm just saying which other hand would you choose then? Jack 10, but you're checking Jack 10 on the flop.
I'm choosing 8-7, 8-9, 9-7 hands that don't have any showdown value. Well, let's just take it to this hand now.
Okay. I want to get back to that.
Yeah. so Danny bet the flop. Patrick called with the bottom pair. It looks like now Danny checked the turn when the spade came in, and Patrick turned his hand to a bluff, which I like. Bet a pot size bet, and I think we should really be seeing a call from Danny.
Mm-hmm.
Just way too exploitable to have top pair, top kicker, and fold when the flush draw comes in against a range that's pretty wide. If I'm Patrick and Danny calls, based on what we've seen from Danny so far, I don't mind barreling off the river. Yeah, so I think maybe Danny's a little discouraged from the earlier hand in terms of putting the money on the turn, then having to fold the river. I think maybe that might be getting to him in terms of that play there, but good sense of weakness from Patrick and using an appropriate bet sizing to pounce on that.
Word.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a pretty good play there.
So let me try and recap a little bit of the discussion you guys just had.
I think I'm right.
I'm moderating.
Okay. I think it's a really good discussion and probably something these guys might want to hear because I think it's I think both schools of thought have a lot of good points, by the way.
Mm-hmm.
Go ahead.
So, Christian, you're saying that on the flop, you're not going to face very much, aggression with a much stronger range. Right. We might as well get value, keep our range intact. Right. No sense in bluff catching right now. Right. On the turn, all of a sudden, our hand probably isn't good a lot, but we can represent a lot of strong hands. We're blocking the nuts, so let's just use this as a bluff.
Correct.
Zach is, I think, on the flop saying we can get. I think what you're sort of implicitly saying, Zach, is that we can get more value or maximize the expectation of this hand by checking and bluff catching rather than betting the flop and then proceeding differently on various turn cards.
Yep.
But I think implicit in that assumption is that your opponent is going to decide to bet a lot or bluff a lot on the turn and river.
And we're up against Mark, who I think is definitely capable of bluffing.
So I think the thing is that on King 10-6 Rainbow, like the majority of our under the gun range is incentivized to start with a bet, and keeping our range uncapped is rather important. Yes, we lose to a king sometimes, but it's not often. Your opponent has a decent amount of like 10x's that you can target, a decent amount of like hands that are just going to like check fold, like queen nine, like jack nine, etc. And folding out that equity is like okay. Furthermore, now let's assume that we bet simply for range purposes, right? And now we face a call. Turns an ace. Well, the argument is that we have showdown value, but how high actually is our showdown value? Like we're not gonna it's mostly gonna go check check, and we want it to go check check again on the river, and somehow he has a 10 and we win. Now I think on the turn the ace significantly improves our perceived range, and now queens has very low showdown value, and it's like really decreased in our overall range. So now firing it, like using it as a bluff, is rather good. And I would say that queens is better than the 7-8, just because it's blocking the nut. Whereas like when you unblock the nut and you unblock ace 10 and unblock ace king and all these things, like when you have the other bluff like 7-8, you said, I think. Yeah,
Any
when you
of
have
those gut shots, yeah.
right, when you have 7-8, now he doesn't have 7-8, so he's way more likely to have like queen jack and things like that, where now our bluff doesn't work.
So, I really like the reasoning on the turn. I think the real discussion is on the flop.
Right. I think I'm not saying checking back is bad. Like I don't think it's a minus EV play. I think both. I think betting is plus EV and checking back both plus EV. Now the thing is that on King 10-6 Rainbow, when we raise under the gun and face big blind, I think our range is just incentivized to bet. So like I think just like starting with a bet and keeping you uncapped for future streets is like better than checking back. It just makes you tougher to play against, in my opinion.
Yeah, I think generally that's true.
Yeah.
And I think we should be betting with the vast majority of our range. And if you wanted to take a strategy where you're betting all of your hands, obviously queens is part of all of your hands. But if you wanted to have a strategy where you're checking back some of the time, I can't think of a better candidate than queens to check back on the flop.
100% agree. Yeah. Or like Jack 10 is probably another one.
Both are what seem like clear checkbacks to me.
Right.
If it was King 10 Deuce, and it wasn't maybe a big blind defend, I can get behind betting our whole range. I think the problem with betting our whole range there is just like there's a lot of like check calling hands in Mark's ranges. He has a lot of 10x, a lot of 6x, a lot of straight draws.
And that's kind of what makes betting queens good.
So, real quick to this hand,
If
assuming he's not bluffing that. Well, okay.
Right, that's what I'm saying. Like assuming he's not bluffing. I don't think you get like that's where the game tree is, right? Like well, like that's where the exploitative is. Like what frequency does he bluff King 10-6 Rainbow? I think it's extremely low facing under the gun. Like, and if it's not, then it's like, okay, well then maybe we do need checkbacks. But I think in a general sense, like people are just not check raising.
Yeah, all I would say to end this discussion, I think, is that that's true exploitatively against most players, probably at the 1, 2, and 2, 5 level, and I think that's definitely not true for Mark, as demonstrated by his play yesterday.
Fair, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's fair. Yeah, I mean, I guess I would just like force him to do it. I mean, I just think like keeping your range uncapped on early streets is like really important when you're playing deep, and it's like, the capability of us not losing that pot. Like we should, like if we would bet and then he calls and then we bet turn and we just win, and it's like, sure, like that's a one hand sample size, but I guess like I just really hate capping myself in deep games. It's just like
well, this is the thing, you don't have to cap yourself. That's the beauty of checking back. You construct a balance.
Yeah, you check back like king jack and stuff like that,
or pocket kings, or
right, pocket kings, yeah, for sure.
So to this hand, Patrick check called the flop and check raise turn. Is that correct?
Yeah, and if I'm Patrick, I would just check raise the flop.
Yeah, for sure.
I don't think the 4 has that much value, so now treat this more just like a flush draw plus. There's not, there wasn't a lot of reason to keep Mark around in this hand with a hand like Ace Jack, which I think is going to make up. There's going to be a lot of hands like that in this range, and this is one turn card where it might work out. But a lot of the other turn cards where Mark would continue in the pot somehow, it's not going to work out anywhere near as well. Like a Jack will probably check back. maybe bet again.
How did this hand go pre-flop?
This hand, I don't trust the pre-flop action that I saw, but what we saw was that Patrick.
Patrick opened.
I think Patrick must have straddled, and Mark raised to 20, and Patrick called out of the straddle.
Yeah. So then Patrick check called the flop, and then when Patrick checks on the turn, I think Mark has a clear bet. But I think facing this big check raise, where he presumably has very little fold equity, when Patrick makes a 225 with effectively 200 something left, I think Mark should just make the disciplined fold. I know he has an open ender to the nuts, but I think Mark just has to fold to the check raise there. But I like him barreling the turn.
It's interesting, like.
So what happened on the flop?
The flop went check call.
Yeah.
So
by
Patrick checked, and then Mark bet.
Okay, I see. So Mark bet. Mark raised. Patrick called pre-flop.
Yeah.
Right from the straddle.
Right from the straddle.
And then check call flop. Check raise turn.
Check raise 3-bet call.
Yeah, I mean he's forced to call at that point. Interesting. I think that there's a argument. I don't hate, to be honest, like I don't hate the check call on the flop. I think it's not the worst thing.
It's hard for it to be.
Both plays are obviously fine.
Yeah.
I think that this is one of those hands that people over check raise, in my opinion. Like it's just like a very, very volatile hand to check raise when you face a call. Because what's the plan? Like that's always my question. Like, okay, you check raise and face a call. What do you do now? Like that's always like the discussion. Like, okay, Queen 9, 4, turn 7 of spades. Like what's your plan? To just like press equity? It's like, but what portion of that bet call range folds the turn? So that's always the struggle, I guess, with these kind of hands. Which I think is a reason for having it in your check calls sometimes. Especially against sticky players that like Mark, that are just gonna like defend versus check raises, especially on boards that it looks like you have a lot of available bluffs. So like Queen 9 4 2 diamonds, like it looks like you have a lot of bluffs here, not very little nut hands. So that's kind of like what increases volatility in that spot with that kind of hand type. And obviously on different boards, having pair plus flush draw on boards that like help your range advantage, obviously check raising and pressing that fold equity is like a lot more incentivized. But like on boards like this, I think we're like less incentivized to check raise because we have very low fold equity. And it's clear that we had low fold equity because Mark didn't even fold on a turn 10.
Yeah.
Like
yeah, I can definitely get behind that. Because then having that pair, it makes it just a really good bluff catching candidate. Where it's like the 4 is going to be good sometimes. Mark is going to barrel on a 10 a lot with air.
Right, for sure. You have a pretty easy.
Oh man, wow, the K6.
This is a weird spot. Patrick 3-bet out of the big blind with 6s. I think that's the kind of merge 3-betting you might have been alluding to.
Yeah, it is.
And in a 6 max game, I could definitely get behind 3-betting 6s, even though normally from the blinds it would just be a call.
Problem is like you're too deep.
Yeah, I just don't.
It's wow. This is a really good card for Patrick.
Yeah.
Problem is like you're really deep and the hand doesn't barrel well.
Yeah.
So like adding more suited connectors is probably much better. Like 4-5, 6-5, 7-6, 8-7.
I agree.
Hands that like are gonna give you barrel ability. Whereas like 6s just doesn't unless you flop a set like this one.
It's not very transparent about its value.
Going back to the hand just to finish it before the other one.
Yeah.
I think Patrick should consider leading turn at some frequency with that hand after check calling rather than check raising.
Lead getting it in, yeah.
Yeah, I mean it's annoying when you get raised. I probably wouldn't lead get it in. Maybe just like lead and then like call. If he gives you a price and like try to actualize your equity.
Yeah.
Because I'm not really sure what kind of like lead, like if we lead and get raised, like I don't know what hands he's like folding to the 3-bet. I guess his exact hand, like ace jack.
Yeah.
But yeah.
So
he makes an interesting check raise here.
I think just
Sorry,
raise.
yeah.
It's actually not. It's not a raise I hate. At first it was like, oh, why are you raising the middle pair? But there's 2 draws out here now. And if you think your opponent is probably going to be pretty strong when they 3-bet get it in here, then you could, just fold.
I think
I don't like
it's
this.
just hard to like get the hands you want to fold.
I don't like this free bet on
From Danny?
turn.
Or sorry, from Patrick?
Yeah,
Yeah.
This is, I think, should be a very clear call.
Right, like if your opponent has a 7, he's barreling rivers. If
He's
your
got a
opponent
flush
has
draw,
a
he's
draw,
gonna barrel or make
it's
it
funny
and then
because
bet,
like the
Yeah.
exact hand Danny has, like maybe you should raise because
Yes.
it's gonna go check on the river. Like this raise is for reasons of Danny wanting to check back the river, but in a general sense versus range, when your opponent has a 7, he's gonna bet. When your opponent has a bluff, he's gonna most likely bet on when it breaks. And if he fills with his, obviously that's good.
And like if occasionally he checks back a 7 when the club draw gets in, like it's okay.
Yeah, sure. But
could
it's
even-
like he probably still might bet sometimes, you know.
I think he probably would bet sometimes.
yeah.
You could also
Wow, that's a call.
you could consider leading on a club.
Maybe not. Very interesting. Yeah, I guess what I would also ask Patrick is like, okay, like what are you doing with hands that are not a 7 or a house? Like, are you 3-betting like pocket jacks here?
Shouldn't be, yeah.
Right. Well, it says
it's
once.
over.
He says once because you're dead. Wow, that's kind of the issue with raising the turn. And this is what I'm saying, Danny. Like, don't take this in the wrong way in any form. Like, have a plan for your hand. When you raise that turn, think about what do I do if he shoves? Because that's an option, right? That's actually one of the 3 options. You can fold, you can call, or you can raise. So you have to really think about that third option, especially when you're facing someone that just 3-bet you. Like, so once you raise, like when he shoves, you really shouldn't be like having blurry thoughts. You should be like, okay, well he raised, so I fold, or even if like I call, like even if he said all in, and you say call, like immediately, that's much better than what just happened, which was like you didn't know what you were gonna do.
Yeah. Yeah, this goes back to your earlier point where it's obviously you're going to find spots that you kind of don't know what you're getting into and you have to think about it, but the nice thing about studying away from the table or making a plan at the beginning of the hand is that it'll just be much easier to mitigate mistakes.
For sure.
Yeah.
For sure. Especially when you're about to put in a raise with like a hand that is like you're not always raising there. Yeah. It's like you really need to think about what happens if things go a couple directions.
Yeah, when you have like a pot size or bets left behind there after Danny raises, that's a very clear spot where it's I'm either folding or I'm calling.
For sure.
And knowing that before, yeah.
So we're blind again. Matt opens. Danny is sitting out for a second. Daniel Pestov looks like he's going to 3-bet.
He always looks like he's going to 3-bet.
It's a good way to look.
Wait, what happened here?
Patrick.
Little winner's tilt, maybe. John has ace-jack suited. John is not going to fold. I think the question is whether this is going to be a call or a 4-bet.
Actually,
John had
I'm not sure the action is how we've seen it. I think Daniel may have been the one to 3-bet.
Mark's head.
Yeah, I don't see Patrick has any cards. John 4-bet.
I think this hand is debatable. Like you could cold call this hand sometimes.
Yeah.
I think this deep it can go either way. I think John probably picked up on the fact that whoever 3-bet, maybe Daniel, maybe Patrick, was probably pretty wide, and being out of position with an unpaired hand, I think the best outcome is just taking it down there, even if it is plus EV to call.
I think it's fine.
He's 4-betting, 3-bet from the button of the cutoff.
Yeah.
So that's gonna.
I think it's fine if you think it's going to be interesting because like I think one of the most important things is understanding how your opponents are constructing their 3-bet ranges. If you think he's 3-betting merged, then finding the 4-bet there and getting that hand to fold is probably good. But if you think he's 3-betting pulled, then calling is good because then you dominate some of his pole.
Yeah.
And if you 4-bet, he has a really easy decision of just like 5-betting all in or just like folding.
Yeah.
I think the other part of it though is that if he's 3-betting pulled but the bottom of his pull is really
Yeah.
large, then I'd rather take it down now than play out of position.
No, but at the bottom of you dominate them.
You dominate them, but I don't think your expected value is higher from calling than winning it now.
Okay, that's fair too. Yeah.
Especially if you call the 3-bet, then I think you're going to play it 3 ways out of position
And
a
not
lot
closing
too.
the action.
Mhm,
Yeah.
mhm.
Yeah, I'd like calling a lot more if I was closing the action position. So Danny buys back in, gets ace king, get it started.
A nice way to.
You also can get 4-bet off your equity, as a bluff. which
Yeah,
sorta
but
sucks.
that's gonna be like really wow. That's I mean maybe you're
But
right.
you're
right,
I don't,
like,
I don't
it'll-
mind
it'll-
calling. I don't mind calling.
it'll-
I'm just
no, it's good to see.
I'm
Adding.
speaking for the 4-bet.
Speaking for the other side. Yeah, it's good.
So
Large 3-bet.
Yeah, so Patrick's size is up here. And I think with their dynamic, I think this is a great time. And you talked about this yesterday. It's like, when's a good time to size up? You just kind of got someone, you stack them,
Mhm.
Yeah.
come back opening under the gun, you get a really strong hand.
Looks like Danny's just gonna peel.
Yeah.
This is like okay.
I
I think this is a fluid hand. Like
It could go either way, but I think given how loose Patrick has been playing, and the fact that you're out of position, I definitely prefer a 4-bet here.
mhm.
It depends on what his plan is post flop. Like if he's gonna check fold here, then he
Can't-
should have 4-bet. If he's
can't
gonna
check
check call here, then
Yeah.
it's
Especially with the
looking more
ace of
reasonable.
hearts, and
Oh, against Patrick. Oh man, we're getting.
4-bet getting it in.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, I feel like he's gonna fold here.
Yeah, I would bet on that.
We just
Just
got
like in-
backdoors galore and ace king.
A little bit of the problems with the backdoors is like economy. I guess like I would lead on like the jack of hearts or check shove.
Yeah, check shove jack of hearts
Yeah.
for sure.
It's a good card for you to represent.
Yeah, it's just a matter of like, is it a check shove? Because the pot's pretty big. Nice call.
All right, Danny.
Yeah, good call.
Nice.
Let's give him an ace for that. Wrong.
Game of 6.
So now this is definitely a card where you should just be check folding here, and I hope we're going to see another barrel from Patrick. I'd be surprised if we don't.
Yeah, especially with,
Sorry.
another thing from Danny is like the tank call on the flop. Like, I don't think it looks like he was tanking with, a set.
He also had his hand kind of like his first reaction. I don't know if you guys saw this. Was
Yeah,
to, like,
was to
fold the
fold.
card, and then he had his hands like in that fold area, and then like convinced
Right.
himself to.
Oh,
Oh
That
yeah,
check
so
is really bad.
Patrick definitely missed a bet
I
here.
think
All the
he
king
got
comes.
punished.
Yes.
Oh!
Yes. Yes. This is exactly why you don't check back the fucking turn. Sorry about the
Danny's-
cursing.
It's okay.
So Danny,
Danny's
but-
got a lead.
Yeah, you better bet for value here, Danny. And I think let's go. I don't know, like 125 or something. I think.
I also think the thin check raise is kind of awesome.
I think the check raise is like super boss, but like leading in general is gonna be like the
oh,
best.
you just can't
one of the
check
best
though.
bets.
Oh, you
Oh.
checked.
Oh, I want check on the river.
Yeah, you
Yeah.
can't check.
That's sad.
And then that's why I don't like
Both
the
players are
I don't like
sad.
the check raise as much because
Everyone's
like
sad. Yeah.
if we're check
Everyone
raising
lost
to
his
target
time.
like queens or jacks, like
I guess your check raising also does target like ace queen.
yeah.
Yeah.
But I think we're mainly like if we're gonna check raise, want to get called by worse as opposed to just like get value from bluffs that will then fold.
Also
And
nice.
those
yeah.
hands would be betting the turn. Like if queens or jacks are gonna thinly bet that river, they would have less thinly bet the turn.
Right. I'm okay with I think the check raise is super boss, but it should be like pretty low frequency. Betting is like the better.
Yeah, I think leading is very standard.
Yeah, super
I
standard.
like check raising ace king there just so like people
Yeah, it's
know that you can.
It's
you'll
boss.
fucking do
No,
that,
it's
you know?
super boss.
I would check raise ace king against like some of you guys. I
Yeah.
wouldn't check raise ace king against Patrick. In that
For
spot,
sure.
is what I'm
That's
saying,
that's
yeah.
definitely true. That's why you gotta sometimes leave the boss.
The thing is,
plays.
I also just like I'm just not expecting anyone to ever check back queens or jacks. So it's like
right.
I'm just assuming they have shit.
It's
and they're gonna
that's
represent
always
it,
the game. Like,
you know.
okay, this is gonna be a 3-bet.
And maybe you
And
get
then-
maybe you get ace king to fold sometimes. Probably
You
not.
do.
But
No,
yeah.
sometimes, yeah, they'll like bet like quarter, like third pot, and then you just bomb.
Yeah.
Or they
Oh.
bet half pot in you. You
Mhm.
know?
Yeah.
Or full pot.
Yeah. Wow. I do want to see more of this stuff, of this like flatting ace five in position sometimes, because I think it's like
Yeah.
a little bit too much
Yeah.
of these three bets with the same hand.
Well, it's like
it's getting a little see through.
it's the confusion of like this is a 3-bet hand versus being able to put that into different situations. Like this is a 3-bet hand, when I'm facing an under the gun open from the hijack versus this is a 3-bet hand in the blind. It's like facing a small blind open.
I actually think Matt should continue this turn.
For sure.
Um,
Yeah.
Kind of sucks that you don't have a heart, but like it's okay. Like, man, I'm so happy. Like, I'm not happy, but I'm glad we got to see that check back get punished on the turn.
Yeah.
Patrick's gonna love hearing that.
No, I mean, I'm not. I don't have any.
It's
any,
a way to learn a poker.
Yeah,
lesson.
I'm not. I'm not being biased. I'm just.
Yeah.
I just like. I'm happy when like the mistake actually gets punished, because sometimes what you'll see is he checks back the turn, the river's a deuce, and the guy bets, and now
like
you
a
get
genius,
yeah,
yeah.
now you're a genius, and it's like, no, like that's not what's supposed to happen. You're supposed to get punished.
Yeah. So Patrick up to a good start already. We got 1.8 in the stack.
This game plays big, man.
Yeah.
This game is just like you guys are fooling these guys saying this is 1-2. This game plays big. Yeah, it's 1-2, 500 cap, and the average winner wins $2,000.
2 to 5, yeah.
Yeah.
We don't deal with short stackers.
The average
here, just
winner wins
hands.
1,000 blinds.
So you can imagine how I lost 400 to Mark yesterday.
Yeah, of course. You guys are playing like probably like 25, 50 cents. Just like lose
I wish
800.
I wish that's what we were playing.
Yeah. Christian, we gotta introduce shop to you guys at the
Okay.
the Vegas spot.
No, I'm with it. I would like to see some 3-bets from Patrick here, with these kind of hands.
Man, 6-4 has been treating Patrick very well.
I think this hand, bottom 2, could be distributed like as a split. Like you could check call or check raise this hand. So I would like it's fine either way.
I think
Versus a large bet, I think I would like more likely. So against a large bet where he's polling himself like this, like I would just like check call more.
Yes. Yeah.
And yeah, like that's kind of how I would do it. Because like now he's repping like nothing or ace king, ace queen, ace jack, which like you can target on later street. It's also like a really good hand to protect your like ace tens and ace nines. So like that way you don't like just let him triple barrel you every time it's like ace 6 4 8 deuce. Like you're not just like open. Maybe that's like a bad run. I don't know what makes it straight, but you get the concept though. Like
yeah.
If you don't have any ace kings, ace queens that often, it's kind of he has the green light.
Yeah.
And like bottom 2 pair is like a good one to like help you protect your weaker aces.
It's also a hand in which like if someone bets large like Matt did on the flop where he's polarizing himself to like maybe like king highs and broadways and then better aces, those better aces are going to barrel the vast majority of turn cards.
For sure.
And those broadways are likely going to pick up, Christian's picking up equity. So I think if you check call here, you're going to have the opportunity to check raise most of the time.
Correct. Yeah.
So Daniel getting in there.
I'm okay with this 3-bet.
Especially game flow wise, hasn't played that much. Danny's been involved in a lot of pots before. I think this is a slam dunk 3-bet by Daniel.
I want to see more of this from these guys. More polarized 3-bets from out of position. More in position merge. Like this is what I want to see. Like less of this like king jack suited out of position. Like keep those hands in your merge and in position. Like you're gonna play much better. See that hand plays easy. If he 4-bets you, snap fold. Like they're really good at constructing 3-bets. So I would like to see them like make that small adjustment, probably make them much tougher. And they're already like pretty tough. Some more than others. I won't say who.
Until the end of the stream, I guess.
I think the dealer's tough. Matt looks like he's like gonna try out for a movie or something. Like professor of some science. Okay, he's mixing in some limps. I think that's reasonable, especially against a tough left, very deep.
Yep. But just obligatory, he should be raising it most of the time, I think.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
It's an action flop.
Very reasonable bet. I think John
I think
has a
John's pretty-
decision between raising and calling. Both are fine.
Yep.
Chooses to call. I think that's reasonable.
I think I prefer raise, and now I think we should definitely be raising in John's shoes.
I think that's true. Yes. 7 of hearts is nice in our hand.
I think I raise flop with how deep we are in John's position.
Yeah, I think both are very, very reasonable. He kind of delayed his polarization to the turn. Now he's repping 6x or 7-9.
And I think Patrick has a.
Kind of sucks that 7s kind of blocks like some bluffs here. It blocks nut, but it also blocks bluffs.
Yeah, I think
It's
with
hard to-
Patrick, I like leading the turn, but when you get raised, you really have to fold.
But I think
I don't know.
I think it's close. I think the decision is more like
There's a
should
lot
he
of
be
picked up
betting?
heart draws.
I think
I don't think betting the sevens is.
right. That's kind of the
It's
discussion
competitive.
because like now
Yeah.
when you get raised, and I think it's very reasonable for John to have like Jack 9 in his hand,
Yeah, I
things
think
like that.
John could float the 5 on the flop with a lot of hands in position.
Wow, that's a really bad card for.
And
No,
I think,
actually, it doesn't change anything. But 7-9 is like way less likely now to like
I think
be betting.
this might be a good card for John to give up on.
yeah, I think John is probably gonna give up here. I would guess. And this thing about
He's got
Patrick,
a really bad hand though.
yeah,
But I think a give up is pretty solid.
especially against someone like Patrick. I mean, I've played with him more, so when Patrick thinks he has the best hand, he's gonna call. You know, and I would be shocked if he folds this. And if John's gonna,
That's a check.
yeah, that's
Yeah.
a check. We know that look from John. If John's gonna bet here, I like.
He's gonna feel like this player, he could have got him off this. Just mock.
Yeah, I think Patrick has to show first they're out of position, or I guess it's last aggressor. It depends what
I don't know
coast
what
you're
our
on.
I don't know what our house rules are.
We're East Coast, so I think.
I would just like not get Patrick upset and just muck my hit. Just be like you win and like
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, I think that's what he said, and then we had a little
yeah.
all's well that ends well.
Yeah, or all rivalries increase action.
Man, I think if I was Patrick, I'd be like nice try, kid.
Go to camera 3. Look at John, kind of post failed bluff. Oh,
He looked a little bit, but we didn't catch it on camera. We
Yeah,
saw it
yeah.
on the other camera.
yeah.
He was like, maybe I should have done it. I actually don't think it was gonna work. Like I think he was getting called.
Oh yeah, I think he was getting called.
Sorry about the shoddy camera work right there.
It's all right. This isn't Wow, it's so sad when you get it. Just everybody folds. All right, so Patrick is a big winner so far.
Yeah,
and,
most people are around starting stack, and then we got Patrick.
just doing it,
Yeah.
living the dream. The poker on air dream, brought to you by Just Hands. Let's go.
Stacking here, there, everywhere.
So far, I think we're seeing. I think we're seeing a lot of good things. Like I think that this is more like less spazzy than I expected, which is good. I thought there's like a small chance that since 6-6 hand that these guys are just gonna go nuts. But I like the pace. I like the pace right now.
There's been some creativity.
This is gonna be a really tough. Like, I think John needs to be very mindful of, like, he should have a plan of how he's gonna approach Mark on his left, immediately. Like, Mark is probably the one person that is gonna give him a lot of resistance in this game, so he should know, okay, what am I gonna do versus Mark's 3-bets? How is Mark constructing? How am I gonna defend versus 3-bets? what does his flat calls look like? What kind of mistakes does Mark make on flops? Like, can I incorporate some check raises? Whatever. Um, Whatever he thinks that is, he needs to have already thought about that. And in the inverse, Mark should be thinking, how am I going to eliminate this player on my right?
Yeah.
So there should be a lot of confrontation there because, to be honest, like, you know, Patrick is playing well, but he needs to be careful. Like, probably the two most capable players are on his left.
Yep.
And it should be a fight between those two players to gain control of like who gets first shot at Patrick today.
So with Patrick here in the hijack, I like calling most of the time, especially with game flow, with how many hands he's playing. Mark, I think, has a slam dunk 3-bet. We should see a call from Daniel, and I'd be surprised if he doesn't. And then if these were one of these weird spots for Patrick, where it's like he's closing the action, but now the SPR is a lot smaller. It really depends on the bet sizing in terms of what Patrick should do.
Oh, you
yeah.
call that?
This is interesting.
Wow.
I think Matt has a decision to cold 4-bet if he wants.
Oh,
Wow, he doesn't even think about it.
Yeah, that's actually a really good cold 4-bet candidate from out of
Yeah.
position.
especially against that sizing. Yeah.
Right. I would prefer that hand over all those
Maybe.
GTO aces and kings, which are ace 5 and ace 4.
Yeah. No, I feel that. I think that could be a response to the small bet size.
I think Mark
could-
is like kind of exploiting the fact that this raises from under the gun, and I don't hate this. Like, if Mark is gonna construct merged in position, using smaller sizing is good, and it did induce this.
Oh.
I think this is bad.
Yeah.
I think you should be pulled in your 4-bet. Just take the price you're getting, and allow Patrick if to be in the pot.
Yeah, for sure.
Especially if you think Patrick is a weaker player than you or not, like, allowing him in the pot may be good, especially with a hand like this. So yeah, I think that this is now, as Mark, I think he has a decision to flat or 5-bet all in. I think this hand could go either way, depending on how you think Daniel's constructing, and how often you think he's going to just like shell off with like low equity on flops. The problem is that if your opponent is mostly just going to shut down with his ace 5, ace 4s when facing a call, like, just letting 30% equity free roll you to the flop is bad. So his shove is like, oh, and then another thing, if your opponent's just like merged, like, yeah, like this is just like great. Yeah, so I'm okay with Mark introducing this into his 5-bet value range. It's thin, of course, but it depends, like, what you think Daniel's mistake propensity is.
And this is, the problem. It's like, I mean, first off, obviously, eights is a pretty bad candidate to include in the 4-betting range.
Right, and look, so he's merged, so now he has to call. That's why, like, your 4-bets have to be pulled, especially from out of position, because, like, now you think, oh, well, maybe I should call, he has ace king, etc. You're just dead.
Is that an 8 or is that a 9?
I think that's the 9.
Okay.
Yeah. If I were Mark, I think I would probably just peel here, just because stacks are a little bit deeper than I'd want to shove with.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's
I'm not sure,
reasonable.
and I don't think we've seen that much from Daniel to suggest that like he's going to be as merged as he clearly is.
Yeah.
In the 4-bet, out of position.
Right, but it's also of like, what do you think he does with ace 5, ace 4 when he doesn't hit? That's a big proponent too, because that's a lot of equity in a really big pot going to the flop. If he's always shutting it down and only continuing with kings and aces, then we're just free rolling like 30-ish% equity going to the flop. We're like in a spot where, do we think he has jacks?
Yeah.
Do we?
I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, it's close, like, because to trap, like, if you're playing it as a trap, then we have to assume that he's, like, we're causing mistakes on flops, right?
Yeah. I mean,
And it's like, that's the game. It's just like, well, if he shuts down his poles, right, completely, if he shuts down the bottom of the pole when you continue, then we're not trapping anything. We're just letting equity come in, right? Now, if you think he's gonna go with it as a bluff, then yeah, of course, then flat. It's hard to know. Like, you have to kind of be in the game and make that decision. So I think both plays are very, very reasonable.
Yeah, I agree. Like letting 30% to the flop is not great, but it should be pretty transparent like when it gets there. Especially if people aren't going to choose
No, I don't think
hands so predictably.
right. I don't think we're making a mistake,
No.
but we're just like free rolling the like a pretty big pot
Yeah,
in a spot where
and
like
so
he's not making any errors.
that's why I think like this is a pretty close, or it was a pretty close stack size. Like the 4-bet was to 100, and Daniel had like a little over 300 behind. So
Yeah,
it's
I
a little
also
awkward.
think like this is a different game type. Like let's not look at it so much as like big blinds, and just look at it like it's $400 in a massive game. Like people are getting out of line, and we have queens. Like don't be afraid to just put it in. Like fuck them.
Yeah,
Like
I think that's
like this is
a
this
very fair
game is
point.
yeah like this game is not like we're not playing like as 1-2. Like we could literally take the blinds out and they're still gonna play hands. Like let's just not even put 1 and 2. Let's just deal. Put the button somewhere and deal. Like we're still playing hands. Like, but yeah, I think you could go both ways. I think it's just. I think understanding how your opponent is gonna play the pole on the flop is kind of the next thought process after
Right.
after thinking how he's gonna call. All right, so we see a bet and a call. Matt in position with enough flush draw should like probably be raising for value when faced with a bet. It's kind of close because you rep so narrow, but your opponent's probably like over c betting this flop and doesn't really have a response to a raise that often. So I'm curious to see if Matt does choose to raise, what Mark's response will be.
Yeah, I don't hate just calling in
Also very good.
in Matt's
Yeah.
shoes, just because then you just keep in a ton of dominated draws.
For sure.
That being said, this deep against someone like Mark,
I don't think those draws are folding.
Yeah, I don't think the draws are folding, so I think I prefer raising.
Really interesting turn. Now Mark needs to decide how much of this card improves Matt's range, because this is a card that improves your equity, but might improve a lot of Matt's range. I don't think it's significant enough that I would just go to check, but I think a double barrel is kind of good here. But there are spots where the turn card improves your range, but improves your equity, but improves your opponent's range too significantly that shutting it down is good.
And I don't like the bet sizing here for Mark. I think if we're gonna continue betting here, I like potting it or over betting. It's a card that I don't think really improves Matt that much, and there's a lot of draws out there. I think we put a hand like maybe 6-5 in a much tougher spot. If we bet 1.5x pot, we get him to fold his 10 jack of hearts, queen jack of hearts types hands.
I think Mark could go for it on this river. This river does help his range.
Yeah.
A lot. He has a lot of overpairs here.
What bet sizing are you choosing here, Christian?
Probably like 80%. Maybe you could go for the overbet and try to shake a 9 out. But you also just like sometimes win when he just has hearts himself. I would just bet like 80%, I think. I don't think a 9's folding no matter what. You're just trying to shake like 7s that picked up equity.
That's also why I don't mind the.
I think if you would have bet big, like on the turn, and he called, then I don't
Then
think
you can try and get the 9 off.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't mind the smaller turn bet to try and get, better aces with like the ace of hearts to fold. I think there's a lot of hands that would float the flop that Mark would be really happy to see fold, and that would fold for that smaller bet size.
Man, Mark. I think this
Mark,
is.
be a hero. Rip it.
This is.
So we saw him yesterday make the ace high call down
I think it's.
in a spot, and I thought I was thinking about this now. Really not repping that much. When you actually, I guess the check raise. This is actually a good spot to check raise. I think your strong value hands. The draws miss, so the draws will bet.
If I had a 4, I would check raise.
Yeah, I was gonna say 4x plus in Mark's shoes. I think I would be check raising.
I don't know how many 4s Mark's likely to have.
I think you should just start. I mean, that's why I like keeping my range uncapped, because I'm just betting a 4 twice. Like I know you guys like checking and all that stuff, but I'm landing on the river with a 4, and
The problem with just keeping your range uncapped in so many different spots, is just that
you could get raised.
yeah
Yeah.
yeah, like if I were playing with you and you were doing all the stuff in terms of like keeping your range uncapped consistently on board textures that don't so heavily favor your range, I would just be raising you really aggressively.
For sure.
Uh,
That's the exploit. I just think population never does it.
Right.
For sure.
Yeah.
And I just
And it's so hard to know. Like it's because like when I'm telling you, it's like, well, yeah, you know it, but like
yeah.
in a sample size of 100 hands, it's gonna be hard to know, you know.
I just want to really differentiate for both, the participants that are watching this as well as the audience that like this population here and this 6 max that people showed up to, play in this game and improve their poker game is a very different population than like this, I think like 2-5-ish casino population in which a lot of the stuff works very well against.
I think you'd be surprised like how big you can play doing that. Like Berkey plays pretty big. Like it's just that it's easy to combat if you know what's happening, but if I think it's always this kind of semi-cat and mouse game where like if you think I'm merged now, at any point I could switch back to the center, and then now maybe you're over check raising or whatever. But I think live is just like a really prime for exploits. It's just there's so much like going on. But yeah, I think always having like a really strong foundation in game theory is extremely important.
Yeah, I think it's just in like a lot of the stuff you're talking about in terms of keeping your range uncapped. Like these are things that Jack and I are doing when playing in live casino games, but it's usually the first thought maybe isn't. I mean, and Jack, you could let me know if you agree with this, but like my first thought at least isn't, am I keeping my range uncapped, and more of like, okay, what is like what I should be doing with this portion of my range here in terms of approaching something game theoretically optimal, and then based on how my opponent is deviating, how do I punish that?
For sure.
And a lot of that punishing is going to be like betting big a lot on later streets, but
that's fair.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think a lot of the population splits into people who are just like way too passive to a fault, and people who are appropriately active. And I think very few people are exploitatively, counteractive to a strategy like what Christian is proposing often on this stream, which means it's going to work.
Yeah. So Christian, when you said you grind a lot of 5, 10, and 10, 20 in Vegas now, you're doing that stuff all the time, I guess.
Yeah. I just think that the game tree at like 200 big blinds, 250 big blinds, like people don't like the response is to like raise you off the merge, but it just doesn't happen. Like people are afraid to put in a lot of money without nut hands. People are just like really comfortable actualizing their equity. They don't want to get blown off their equity. So there's just a lot of check calls, a lot of these like really more like GTO actions, which is like a lot of defensive play in general. And maybe that's the wrong terminology, but like people don't like getting blown off equity, so they also want to actualize. So it kind of allows you to retain the lead mostly in position and stay uncapped, and then force them to try to defend versus an uncapped range in a spot where they're trying to actualize, which just kind of prints, to be honest with you.
Yeah.
Is it exploitative? 100%.
Yeah.
Now, it's just tough to counter at these stack depths.
So onto this hand now. Daniel raised pre-flop after Danny limped with a straddle, and I like that raise. I think Patrick just needs to fold. Just way too weak of a hand here, especially in a lineup like this where I'd expect Danny to be calling. So Danny called. I think that's fairly standard. And then when Daniel c-bets this flop, I understand the reasoning and that this just hits his range so much harder. And I think it's probably a good bet exploitatively against Danny and Patrick, where he's seen Danny play a little bit weak, could probably double barrel him if he calls once. And Daniel and Patrick, I know, have some history, and Daniel kind of knows how loose Patrick can be. So even though this is a hand where I think it's, maybe not that, like if we're c-betting here, we're just c-betting way too much. c-betting way too much against players that are really wide and gonna fold. Works.
Daniel 3-bet free.
He raised.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. It's probably it's
So I
It's
like
good.
I like the c-bet, but it's definitely like pretty
right. It's
pretty
thin.
pretty.
It's one
It's
of
got
your
the
worst
hearts.
c-bets.
It's got the
Yeah.
hearts.
Yeah, it's one of your worst c-bets, and you don't turn well unless you turn hearts.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think you get a lot of folds from Danny, limping.
Mhm.
I think you could double barrel Patrick a lot.
Although Patrick's not
Well,
someone I'm gonna.
I'm not. That's
Yeah, I
that's
mean,
not necessarily.
I think Patrick has shown that he's not a folder. He's just gonna call you down with sevens.
Yeah. I
Right-
play with
right,
Patrick.
John?
I play with Patrick a lot. Or not a lot. I mean, 3 to 5 sessions, I think, and I've definitely found that he, when he thinks he has the best hand, he'll call. But he's also capable of calling down twice with bottom pair and folding the
Yeah,
river.
Patrick's like one of those. Patrick's tough in this game because these guys like their constructed bluffs. So I think Patrick's like someone that you might have to underbluff against.
Yeah, I
And-
think John has already shown that's like a good strategy.
Yeah.
Or he hasn't demonstrated it, but he's at least gotten to that conclusion.
But Patrick is like also, and I guess this is good for Patrick to know when he rewatches this. Like, he's the prime candidate I would 3-bet merged in position.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah.
So just understand, Patrick, that really good players would be 3-betting you, not with aces and kings and all. I mean, obviously they're doing that, but they're also 3-betting you with merged hands in position. So it's really dangerous for you to call with the bottom of the merge, like queen 10 and things like that, because players are going to be 3-betting you with like king queen suited, flopping a queen and betting 3 times, because you call a lot. So, and that's good. People are gonna should be under bluffing you, but then the problem is when they introduce like thin value, it makes your strategy like really tough to implement. So it's just something that you want to keep in mind. Like you want to against 3-bets, you probably want to like continue a little bit tighter, and like a little stronger than what we think you might have.
So just last hand, Danny 3-bet hijack open with ace queen in the cutoff. I like it.
Yeah.
I think he raised too big though. You're gonna want to be 3-betting this a lot. So instead of going 835, I like probably 830, maybe even 827 or something. But yeah,
Nice.
we're just nitpicking here.
Yeah, for sure. Main thing they want to understand is that like when you're 3-betting merge like that in position, just use smaller sizing. Like
Yeah.
stick to your 3x's. Like stick
Yeah.
to the 3x and you'll be fine. Like we saw it work really well with Mark, right? He
Yes.
kind of like used the small sizing and then induced like a massive mistake.
Yeah.
I think Danny needs to be careful. I'll say this, like things aren't going his way, and he's kind of becoming a target.
Yeah.
And his table presence right now doesn't show a lot of strength. Just like if you go to his camera angle, like it just doesn't look like he is very comfortable right now. And it's just gonna be there's just something like going on. Like he seems a little uncomfortable. Maybe he didn't show up to play 6-handed, whatever. And there's something going on. Like I just don't understand. He's just like in an uncomfortable situation. And man, Matt needs to cold call here for
Yeah,
sure.
this is exactly what we're talking about yesterday. I'm
Yeah.
glad to see him do it.
Good call. And what do you think of the 3-bet by Mark? I think it's thin, but I like it. I like putting this at the bottom of our 3-bet range. Getting a little more merge out of position. I think
I'm okay because I'm okay just because it's Danny.
But
Yeah.
Like Danny's just like he's gonna make mistakes today. I don't know. Like I feel like he's in uncomfortable. Like so he's just targeting
Yeah.
in this situation.
nine's just a tough hand to like really
It is.
capitalize on your opponent's mistakes. Like
And I think that Matt needs to just like be willing to play for stacks.
Oh yeah.
Like now, like if he raises, if we see a bet here, just like stuff, and like be okay with like sometimes running into it.
if you're
Mark is like mostly understand that Mark like he's playing good today. He's like way more merged. Even though I would usually want him to be pulled out of position, I think he can target Danny with nines. Just because it's Danny today. And I'm not saying Danny you're like you're a fish or anything like that. You're probably really good. But today it's different. Like today you're a target because of what has happened today. And like that this is what happens in live. Like you see this is a
Whoa,
mistake.
Yeah.
You see
Yeah,
you're
that's a
not
mistake.
playing your A game today, Danny. That's the problem. That's why you're getting targeted
So
by
yeah,
Mark.
Matt needs to be raising here, and Danny I think really needs to be folding.
Correct.
When you're Mark here, this is a really interesting spot on the turn. Do we?
I think you should just shut it down. Like he's
Yeah.
getting too much resistance.
Yeah.
Yeah.
This is the problem with being in the merge out of position. Like you get in a lot of weird spots. But I think the play was still okay because of the mistakes that Danny's making today. Danny, I said it before the hand started. Like Danny needs to be careful, right? I think Matt should just like consider
Yeah.
just like betting this turn.
I think it's a
he-
mandatory
yeah, I
bet.
think
When
can't.
you call the flop and don't raise with that hand, you're hoping the pre-flop raiser checks so you can bet. Now you're just kind of
Danny
playing.
might
let's
win this
let's
hand.
hit my flush.
I think maybe Matt is worried that Danny's going to be a little sticky.
Yeah.
I don't think Danny's going to win this hand.
He might.
Well, I
You
mean,
know, that's
depending
true.
Depending on the bet sizing, I think we might see a fold from Mark and then
A
call
shove?
from Matt.
I would hate to see Matt call.
So I think Mark definitely needs to fold here.
Yeah.
Um,
This is the problem. Like I'm gonna keep saying, like the problem with being in the merge out of position is this kind of spot. I still think Mark made a really good play pre-flop though.
yeah, it makes it difficult, but to your point, so like people listening know it's you get into these really tough spots when you make these thin raises out of position, like nines, tens, like even maybe some people listening aren't comfortable with raising jacks, but
I think it's okay when
in
you
the
think
long run you're making money. You have to know how to navigate these spots,
Right.
which is I think Mark did well. He made a thin value bet on the flop that worked,
Yeah,
and then had to check fold
Yeah.
on the turn.
it's almost not even like value. It's mostly just like protection.
I think it's a combination of
A little bit of both.
Yeah.
I think it's a good bet on the flop. I think his 3-bet is 100% fine. When he's targeting Danny, and I really think that's like I give Mark enough credit to understand that dynamic because I think he's really capable. Like I said yesterday, I think his ceiling is really really high. He understands spots, and that's more important than understanding hands.
Yeah,
I think Danny might win this hot check
Yeah.
on the river.
Yeah.
What do I know, Danny? Live your life. Let's
But no,
fucking
I mean,
go.
I mean, so this is the problem. Matt, it's like Matt has such robust equity on the flop. He's gonna get a fold on the flop in the turn, and now he might, bluff. And who knows,
Please, you
who knows what
can't-
Danny's gonna do?
You
I mean,
can't bluff this river. You just
No,
you
it's-
chose. Understand.
it might work if he does, but he
I think
should
it's
not.
important to understand the mindset. Okay, really good check.
That was a good check. It out.
It's
guess-
really frustrating for him to see eights there, and Danny,
Mark.
I said it. He would have won the pot.
It's good.
But
Panda Mark,
Mark
Jack.
can't be too upset there. He
No,
didn't
Mark-
lose the pot
Yeah,
because
it's
of
just
Danny.
one of those.
He
It's just
lost
one of
the
those
pot.
spots.
He lost the pot because of Matt.
Yeah.
Matt is supposed to win that hand
Yeah.
every time when it just goes bet by
Yeah.
Mark. Understand that Mark. This is the thing, guys. Understand this. Mark is very likely, at least perceivably, to be pulled, right?
Yes.
You have king queen. You block queens and kings. He has all of his wheel aces there, and when you're wrong and he just has it like aces, you just have a flush draw. Or when he has jacks and calls it off, you have two overs and a flush draw.
Yeah.
Just like allow your equity to bail you out sometimes, and don't be afraid to make a mistake. You don't always have to have the nuts. Like just like press your equity, understand that Mark is not always at the top, and you're gonna do just fine. I think Mark played the hand very well, and Danny won.
Yeah. I think Mark's most interesting decision was to bet the flop or not.
I like his bet. I think you just like fold out equity. Sometimes you have the best hand. He did have the best hand. He just
Yeah.
he
it
just
depends
like
on what you think.
ran into king queen of hearts. It could have been king queen of spades, and he just wins the pot.
No, that's true. I just think that like the cold call of the 3-bet.
Yeah, he's gonna
Looking-
run. He's gonna run. Yeah,
He's
he's
gonna
gonna
run
run
into
into
some
some
jacks.
overpairs for sure.
Going to this hand now. I think this is an illustration of what Christian was talking about. Patrick to be worried
Mhm.
about, where it's when you're getting 3-bet wide, and John has ace king here, but I'm sure he's going to be 3-betting with king queen,
Mhm.
probably even king jack with this dynamic, and then you call with the bottom of this range. You're going to just make, I think, pretty big mistakes like this, where you're betting out 40 with you have some back doors, but
Yeah.
I mean look at the equity.
John should punish here and just raise.
I disagree. I think
Okay.
this is a spot where I've played with Patrick, so I think it's a spot where you want to just call in position and let him keep doing his thing.
Thing is, I don't think Patrick has a lot of bet folds, so I would just try to get money in this pot. Quick.
Yeah, it's hard not to be results oriented when I see 4-3 suited here. So I think.
Well, that's what I'm saying. Yeah, I'm seeing 4-3 suited. I still think he doesn't have
exactly.
a lot of bet folds.
Yeah. So I've played with him, and he definitely does have bet folds in spots like this.
Yeah.
I would imagine, but I'm also looking at 4-3.
Yeah, for sure. I guess when I see this board, I don't think he has a lot of bet folds.
Yes.
Even though I see that he does.
Yeah, I mean, he could easily just have king jack here that he wanted to lead out, and then when John raises, he's not folding that king.
Right. I also think he has some draws and 8x's and whatever.
Yeah.
I mean, obviously, 100% calling's super standard.
I don't know if calling standard. For me, I think when I have ace king in that spot, my raise is standard, but exploitatively against Patrick, I would be.
Okay.
Yeah.
I guess I see a different view of Patrick than you guys, but you guys obviously have way more information.
I've never played
Just
with
me.
Patrick or seen Patrick play, but
I think Patrick's sticky. He's just sticky. I see Patrick and I'm just all right, this is some New Yorker guy. He doesn't like folding. He doesn't like getting pushed around. He's gonna he's here to fight, and I think he fights in really interesting ways. I don't know. I think it's super interesting. I also think the benefit of raising is that it does allow you to play for stacks
Right.
sometimes.
Yeah.
Which I think is important. Whereas when you flat in the middle cards come through, now you're defensive. So that kind of sucks. But
Yeah.
I think if you know the information that he's possibly going off with 4-3 of clubs, then then just flat.
he also called a 3-bet pre-flop, right?
Yeah.
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 Yeah. 8-35.
So I don't-
8-35 call.
I'm not
or
seeing it-
10-35 call. Yeah.
It's really amazing that Patrick showed up with a hand 4-3 of clubs there. I just would never expect.
This is why we need to 3-bet him with a lot of hands.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Um.
Oh wow.
Wow, this is sick.
It's an action flop.
Yeah.
I think Danny should consider checking here. There's a pretty good hand to check call, especially this multi-way. This is kind of the bottom of your value.
Yeah.
I think Daniel, sorry, is just calling here.
Yeah, I think this is one of these spots where it's you have 2 pair, but when you're in a 4-way pot and you're really deep, 9-8 really isn't that good of a hand when stacks get in. Nut flush draws.
Why did Mark limp? It's really interesting.
Did he limp?
I think he
It's a
did.
limp pot.
Limp called?
Yeah.
Oh yeah, because this.
He can't raise here. Okay, good. I think Mark is mixing it up. I'm okay. Whatever, man. Maybe you have a more elaborate plan, for stuff, and we're not privy to that information just yet.
9 of diamonds.
That's a jack.
Oh, Danny.
I
bad
think
card.
Danny needs to still check. He's
Mhm.
This hand is playing really weird because I think Danny should have checked, and I think Daniel should have bet flop, and then something else happens. Now he's getting led. So okay, Danny, when you lead here, what do you want to happen? Because when you're up against houses or straights, they're not folding.
Yeah.
And when you sucked out on 9-8, but that hand has a pretty easy fold.
Did Danny wants to fold? I think he wants to fold it, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And now, so you're targeting. You actually got very fortunate and to get the perfect 2 hands behind.
Yeah.
But you have to really think about what you're targeting when you lead that turn.
What's that final card? It looks like the river.
It's gonna be a little important. That's a queen, and now I think you need to just check.
Yeah.
What is
Yeah.
Mark's range when he cold calls the bet? When he cold calls the flop raised by Daniel, and then calls your turn bet when you have 3 jacks,
Yeah.
right? What does he have? He's pretty pulled to having a straight which chops, or like a flush draw.
That miss, yeah.
Uh-huh. And I think Mark is capable of cold calling pre with like the straight, which is just the chop. So he has like diamonds, the straight,
Some
and
houses.
some houses, but like not many because you have the jack. Maybe he has like pocket eights.
So I think in this spot when Mark took a little bit of time to tank, like it's, I know if if I'm in Mark's shoes and I see Danny playing kind of weak and he makes this small bet sizing here, and we're 700 behind. If I was in Mark's shoes and because I've played with Danny before, I know him. I honestly would consider just completely ripping it here, just like absolute all in. Where I just think it's very rare Danny has anything better than 10x.
Sorry.
And this is what you're talking about a lot yesterday, Christian. Pain threshold. It's like
Yeah.
Danny could think he's getting bluffed most of the time. I don't think he's putting in $700 with 10x there.
Yeah, it's tough because Danny's range is so strong.
Yeah, I wouldn't.
Like,
I wouldn't.
I feel like he has a
He could
jack.
have. He could. Yeah. I feel like he's got a jack. If he's got a jack, it could very easily be queen jack or jack 10.
I guess like what I'm with you in terms of like putting these guys to decisions.
I
guess the only part that I don't like is that Daniel raised and it went call, and then Danny led again.
Yeah.
Like that's strong. Like he has to have a jack, right? Minimum, right? Or
Yeah.
like it's hard for him to have just a 10 because he led on the turn jack. I guess he could have queen 10. But like, yeah, I mean it's close,
I think
man.
10x and jack x. But
Yeah.
I think for the sizing, it's rare I'll have a boat. So Danny here on the button, I think really needs to be raising this jack 9 suited, not limping it.
Yeah, there's a lot of interesting stuff happening.
Wow. Soul red on the turn. Just 10,
I think
10 insta call.
I think he had the double gutter.
Double gutter, yeah,
So
yeah.
he like called.
No, of course.
No, he
I'm
thinks
just gonna lead.
no, he's betting in position.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, Danny's on the button. Okay.
Yeah. It's just like hands are playing weird. I think in general, everybody right now needs to like kind of take a breather and like evaluate their strategy. Like what is gonna allow you to win in this game? Like what is your edge? Like what are you planning right now? Because everybody's like I really think right now Matt is very undecisive right now. Like confidence is a little down. He should have won that king queen.
Yeah.
Danny has gotten really lucky. He's gotten really lucky to win those last two hands. But if he loses those hands, right? How does he feel? Like he's just absolutely like distraught, right? Like and I think everybody's like a little unsure. Like no one's really had anything good happen.
Yeah.
Besides Mark, obviously with the queens, but like the majority of the table is kind of like really unsure of themselves right now in terms of like how they're gonna win. I guess I just think Patrick's having a great time.
Yeah. I mean, I think probably first time playing on TV. You're up a grand.
Yeah,
what's
awesome.
not to like?
It's awesome. But yeah, honestly, like right now, if I was like one of Matt's friends, I would be like, hey man, like just chill out. Like I know it's frustrating losing that pot, but it's not the end of the world. Like and stuff like that. And he's trying really hard, because he came up to me this morning. Not came up to me, but like he was sitting in the table, and he's like, yeah man, I listened to you. Like ripped me pretty bad yesterday. But he kind of liked that I did that.
Yeah.
And I was like, yeah, man, like just don't be afraid to be outside your comfort zone. And I'm pretty sure like he is right now. Like he has a tough seat only because this is why I'll say it's a tough seat, because John and Mark get the spots before him. So he's probably not comfortable targeting John and Mark yet. So John and Mark get the first shot at like Patrick, and so he's kind of like left to respond to that, and that's kind of annoying. So that's kind of like sometimes like being to the left of the good players is not always great.
Yeah, I agree. In a low stakes game, it's sometimes really bad.
Yeah. Especially because like I think Matt's gonna find himself with a few very good like kind of cold four betting spots, and I'm sure he's not used to playing in games where like you really need to pull the trigger on that cold four bet, maybe with a hand as bad as like 9-7 suited or something.
Yeah. I mean, there's
Like
so
that
many.
ace queen, he had ace queen off one time where it was like not a layup fold, and he just like quickly folded it.
Yeah.
There's so many 2-5 players who like make a living taking advantage of bad players and have no idea what to do against a good player.
Because they absolutely avoid every spot.
And
you
if
know?
you're on their left, like you're not getting much of an advantage on them because like they're not going to make any like huge mistakes
Right.
against you. They're just mostly going to shut it down. But they're going to take the spots.
Yeah, that's the thing.
I think
That's
a lot of those players, you just want them on your left, really. You
Yeah.
want to deny them the opportunity to take any.
Yeah,
of
and
the
you'll
spots.
ISO someone and they'll be like, oh, and then just fold every time.
Yeah. That's kind of the unfortunate situation Matt is in right now. Because he has to try to somehow like get spots, and it's like where. So Matt's biggest struggle right now is like where is he gonna make money, and like what can he do to like separate himself, and it's just really hard right now.
They were talking about Berkey for a second. I was like,
Oh no.
what?
I think Patrick. See, this is kind of a cool spot. I like this. I think Patrick has like such a wide call range, and with these two guys on his left that like to 3-bet, it's okay for him to mix this in sometimes as a flat.
Oh yeah, he has to.
Yeah.
But then has to be not afraid to just like
Raise some flops.
Or no. Or I was gonna say if he gets 3-bet, just like
Oh, yeah.
4-bet, get it in pretty
Yeah,
obviously.
yeah. Yeah, I like this flat by Patrick.
Yeah.
This is really good.
Game flow wise, I think it works out very well.
I'm less of a fan.
You're less of a fan.
I'm less of a fan.
Yeah. I mean, okay, that's
Patrick's done a good amount of big 3-betting this session. He's mostly had it, but his opponent's so nice to know that. He 3-bet the 6s out of the big blind. Like, everyone saw that. I would just.
For sure.
Oh yeah, the 6 has got the showdown. Yeah.
I think you have to give these guys a chance though to your left to just like keep doing what they'd like to do.
Yeah.
So it's okay to mix this. It's not like a high frequency flat. I think it's okay to just flat sometimes, especially when someone like this that like has the image of he just has a ton of wide flats. Like he needs to have sometimes.
So I actually like this raise by Mark. There was a similar spot Jack and Mark got into yesterday. Mark did a similar thing. Oh no.
Did
Oh,
Mark and I?
Light there. Yeah, I was thinking of a different hand. Never mind. But this is a good spot because I think when Patrick leads out here, he's gonna have a lot of hands that are unpaired, and this is kind of a cleaning up your equity. Raise once, see if you can take it down. Kind of thing.
And you're not expecting Patrick to have queens.
Yes.
That's why I liked everything about the flat.
Yeah, but you didn't know this was gonna be the flop.
Yeah.
Yeah, but this is a common. This is kind of one of the common flops, right?
No.
Wow, this is such a great spot. No, I mean like you're gonna get a lot of flops where queens is an overpair.
Sure, but are you gonna get a lot of pot? I think this is fortunate in.
Oh, we're trying to find a. I guess we're playing Last Aggressor.
Yeah. I think it's kind of cool. I think it's okay. Like Patrick, it's okay, man. Like I think it's cool. Like this showdown is not the worst thing that could happen for Patrick. Like him showing some like good hands in his flat range now protect him from always getting squeezed behind. Now that hand showed down. Like that was a good event for Patrick. I think. Like he didn't win the biggest pot, but that showdown is protecting him now a little bit moving forward. Because now when he flats, he has hands. And these two guys on his left have to be concerned about that. It kind of just changes the game flow a little bit. Like he didn't win the biggest pot, but it might help him down the line in terms of like how these two guys on his left approach him, and that's really his biggest concern on the table.
Yeah, I definitely think there's some upside to. I mean, we've just seen the upside to flatting the queens. I definitely think it's okay. I think it's best to just 3-bet it.
Yeah, obviously, that should be the standard. Like the standard is a 3-bet, 100%. Patrick. We need more Patricks. Just like players that are there, like V-pipping and stacking 30% of the chips in play and all that. Balling out of control. Nice bracelet.
Yeah, Patrick's absolutely changing the dynamic of the game.
Yeah.
More than anyone else. It's a very different feeling game than yesterday.
Yeah.
And I think these guys, I warned this, like they could struggle against this player type because it causes things they're not used to, like someone this sticky and like just has like weird hands in different spots. Wow, free bet?
No.
Oh, flat. Okay, cool. I saw Patrick fold and I was just surprised.
Yeah, what happens?
No matter what.
So I think we should see a bet and a call here.
Yep. Pretty easy bet here. Pretty easy call.
So I think Danny definitely gives some stuff away in that, like, he really tanks a lot of his kind of like harder decisions, middling hands, and just like insta flats with a lot of hands like this. And just, I think it would behoove Danny to take a little more time in spots like this, even if he knows he's going to call. Just because there's a lot of spots in which it looks like he takes a while to kind of think through all the different options.
Interesting spot for John, because it looked like such an easy call for Danny that I would be tempted to shut down.
Yeah.
But this card doesn't really help the easy calls very much. So Danny with a small bet.
You targeting 6s and 7s.
Yeah, he's also just like cleaning
Or
up
5 or
equity.
4, yeah. I think it's a fine bet.
See the call?
You'll pay some 9s, but it's okay.
Yeah, this goes check often. Dan just wins.
8 speed 7s.
That's how it should go. That's how it should go. Poker should just be played like that every hand.
So we got Patrick drinking an IPA.
Patrick's a legend, man. Like, what a legend.
Shot with a beer.
We need the chip counts to come up less often.
Yeah.
Next time.
Yeah, I think it's an automatic thing.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah,
like
I
after
don't-
every hand. Yeah.
Yeah, I don't think it's supposed to be displayed, or like it's manually displayed.
It's works better for tournaments.
Yeah, for sure. All right, Mark. This is your time. See, the reason I think Mark is dangerous with these hands. That's why I like Mark, because I feel like I don't know, maybe Mark
You're right.
is like
Mark's dangerous.
Mark is dangerous with value and that's what I think his biggest upside is. Like, he has the image that he's so capable of bluffing that it increases the value of his middling range. So like when he has 10s and 9s, it's just like they're stronger for him than they are for someone else.
We should see a lot of bet calling here.
And this is what I'm saying. Like, this is why I like if you think he's gonna bet call, then betting 10s is good because he's not check raising this hand.
No, I meant.
No.
Sorry.
Yeah,
Oh,
I think we should. Yeah, we
Mark
should
should
see
bet
it.
and then John should. Yeah, I think Mark should have bet this flop. An interesting spot for John in terms of. I really think Mark's gonna be betting here now.
I would consider.
Yeah, what John should do.
I would consider leading. It's definitely a great hand to check call. Just think that like a lot of times when we check call, we're not good. Like.
So
Yeah.
then we should rate.
I don't mind. I don't mind raising.
I think I prefer lead 3 betting this turn card in John's shoes.
This entire hand was played like a bunch of cowards.
Not what you would expect.
Like,
Yeah.
what the hell was that, Mark? I just told you that you were
Pumping you up. Yeah.
I just said that you're dangerous with these hands. You ain't dangerous. What was that? Both of you guys play like a bunch of showdown pussies.
Oh.
No offense, guys. It happens to the best of us. I do it too. But god damn. both of you guys had good hands, and we saw one small ass bet go in.
Yeah.
Christ. Oh man, I can't breathe after that one. Sorry guys. You're two of my favorite, but goddamn, what just happened? You- I'm out of here.
There's not much to say. There's not much to say for that. We saw
I hope you guys don't take
Daniel.
offense to any of the stuff I say because I love all you guys. I think it's funny that
When
that
these
hand,
guys signed up and paid their deposits, they knew they were gonna, get
Get
an ass whooping on
yeah.
by the commentators. But
Oh
I,
my
w- I would.
god.
I'd like to see Daniel Pestov open Queen 10 offsuit from a cutoff. Personally.
oh yeah, especially with the game flow, he's been playing.
Yeah, he's been playing. He's been very snug.
Yeah.
They're both talking about how they're both nits.
I think they're talking about how you're really betting $3, bro. We hear what they're saying a little bit.
Nothing like an afternoon of bench sales.
I'd like to see John bet again
Oh yeah, blind versus blind against Mark. Clear value bet, I think.
Yeah, I'd rather be.
with a worse kicker. I would consider checking.
Yeah.
Oh, we'll see them both check back. Both check. Let's just get to the showdown, guys. Let's just river an ace.
River King, I think. Oh, an ace. Wow.
Yeah, it'll be hard for Mark to get too much value here. And probably just bet around pot, a little over pot in Mark's shoes.
Wonder if John can get away from it.
I think
The
probably.
clubs. The
This-
clubs. I mean, like the clubs doesn't worry him. How much did Mark bet? Just $5. Well, no, I don't think he can get away from it. Oh, he bet pot.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, I think Mark has a lot of ace-x calls here. Like, I think it's
Yeah.
a pretty reasonable fold by John. So when he does this, he's definitely not going to go for the check raise bluff. Good disciplined fold. That's what we love, Christian, right?
That was great. You guys played it great. It was a good fold though. Man, I'm still really disappointed in that hand. Only because it's hard for me to give someone props and then like immediately let me down. Like
Yeah,
I didn't
it
like
was-
that.
That was some run bad.
That
in
hurt
terms of,
me.
Of timing right there.
Yeah, it's like okay, he's dangerous. Like, yeah, I think there's a little bit of value in these guys, these two guys like having a more aggressive dynamic that one of them just like reigns and wins because it really leaves the green light for them to be able to win a lot in this game. And right now they're both just like patty caking each other. Like just I don't like that. Yeah, like let's see some because understand they're both probably like, oh, I want to get Patrick, but they don't understand that to get Patrick, one of those guys has to be, especially Mark, has to like really.
Yeah,
get-
Mark
yeah.
has a he
He has a
doesn't
responsibility
have
to
the first option at it, and so he needs to make
Right, but if
John fear.
Right, exactly. If John all of
Getting
a
in
sudden
there.
starts losing some pots, now he has to kind of be a little bit more tame, and momentum isn't in his way. And I know a lot of people don't believe in that, like, oh, the cards don't have any memory or anything like that. But in terms of live games, like, I just think that people react in like psychological responses sometimes. Like if things don't go their way, or like if somebody's like playing very well today, like they over adjust in some facet.
Yeah.
And these two guys are experienced. Like they're probably both pros. So they're, but especially someone young like John, like I'm not sure how he responds to adversity. Like having someone really tough on his left, like gunning for him. I don't know. Like I guess I just want to find out. That's kind of how I would approach it. I don't know what you guys laughs mean. Like this guy doesn't know what he's talking about. John is
No.
the boss.
I just think I'm just still. It's just like the timing of this whole thing is just still kind of tickling me.
But yeah, I mean, I would like to see. And
Yeah,
like,
I mean, John is a boss. That's definitely true.
yeah, I think he's really good.
But more like, I mean, the same is true for me. Like I want to start playing in tougher, higher stakes games where I can react to these types of situations where someone's gunning for me because I not so much recently, but for the last few years, I've mainly played poker as my main source of income.
Mm-hmm.
So as a result, I'm playing. Most of that volume has been at the 2-5 no limit level,
Right.
where I'm not trying to play in games where people are gunning for me.
For sure.
I'm trying to play in games where I maximize my exploitation of the worst players.
For sure, but I think Mark should also understand that the way he wins the most money here is like John taking less spots against Patrick. Because where Mark makes the most money in this game is through Patrick.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's no slight on Patrick. It's just a positional situation. However, there's a good player that has that first option, which negates Mark's ability to take spots.
Yeah.
So now, frustrating John's spot takes, right? Like spot take, man. That's not even a word, but you know what I mean.
It's okay.
Yeah.
The ability for John to take spots is really important for Mark. And he's capable, man. Like I know it. Like this guy's tough. Like I wouldn't want to see Mark at all my tables. Like he has ability like to be extremely good. I think yeah, like he has that. I don't know, like when he gets tens, like I said, like he's dangerous. That doesn't apply for everybody. So I think he needs like a more killer mentality with these kind of hands. And I think maybe that's his next progression, Like he's probably I think Mark began with that mentality and then like tried to get really good at poker, studied GTO a lot, and then now he's in that like that learning curve of like, well, I know GTO or I'm trying to know GTO very well and like this is a check back, but then part of him is like, fuck him, I want to 3-bet 9s and bet on 10-7x because I have, you know what I'm saying? So he's like fighting these two schools of thought, and when he's able to like kind of like wave through both those seamlessly, he's gonna be like potentially elite. Sorry for the flashes of pink light. It's a Sunday here.
Yeah.
In the East Coast.
So Christian, on what you were talking about before, do you see like the GTO school, as you said, in contrast to like betting 9s on that board? Like
I think that no, I think there's a lot of protection betting in GTO. They might choose like a smaller bet, like there because the reasons of betting is strictly for protection. You don't really get too much value on that board texture to 3-bet pot. So it might like choose a smaller bet. I think I don't think I think Mark plays very well.
Yeah.
I'm not knocking him in any facet. I think he's a very good winning player. I think when he learns, like, I think his biggest hurdle is going to be like identifying where the exploit is and just pressing that all the way.
Mm-hmm.
And then when he's not sure where the exploit is, gearing back to like a more theoretically sound game. And right now I think he goes back and forth between those thoughts a little bit, like not smoothly, in my opinion. Like I haven't seen too much play from him. You guys know him better than I do.
Mm-hmm.
But like I think his ability is really high, and when he's able to do that, like he'll be really, really good.
Yeah.
and that kind of goes for a lot of players here. Same thing maybe with John. Like, they're probably both like good friends and talk a lot, and they're probably very similar in terms of skill set. No comment.
Well, it just
Just leave me out to
We-
dry, guys. All right, you guys are.
well, I just think it's we just know.
Yeah.
So these guys are some of our very good friends, so we know a lot.
Okay, that's
And it's almost, I think, more interesting just to like leave like without even like bringing the facts per se.
okay.
Like I think the facts are almost less important as like
Then my
like
assumption.
let's just take your opinion like
Yeah.
as it is based on like the sample you've seen. I think it's
Yeah,
more
that's fair.
interesting.
That's fair. Yeah.
I just wanted to leave him out to dry. But
That's
that
good.
works too.
That's better.
So we got probably like an orbit or so, maybe a little bit less of hands before we take our first little break.
You just didn't want to say anything good because he beat you yesterday.
I don't feel too bad about it. I'm looking forward to the rematch.
Oh, shots fired.
Okay, Patrick needs to be careful in these spots, man. Like, I know why he kind of. Well, never mind, man. Whatever.
Yeah, it's a tough spot. Like
I also think Patrick should consider leading with this board at some frequency.
Yeah.
Um,
Oh, John. I really like Mark checking back here, just like knowing
Mhm.
that Patrick's gonna be really wide here, and that heads up, this is maybe a good bet, but it's just not gonna get through enough here. Like you're not
Correct.
gonna clean up your equity.
Correct. Yeah.
uh,
I think it's.
I
I
don't
think.
know. I would consider betting it.
And this I think is gonna work
I just
a
don't,
lot.
I think it's like the
John
only
should
way
be
you're gonna
side-
win the hand. I think you're gonna get it through enough.
If you do,
Especially
it should
after
probably.
John checks.
So I love this raise size by John here. I think, he has a straight. I mean, you could with the speed of that call, John could have sized bigger, but
Yeah. it's
I like that
good.
mindset.
Blind check, Patrick.
Oh, so John definitely still needs to bet for value, I think, but I think
Just it's a
maybe more of like a half
It's a
pot
bad card.
size. It's not a great size.
Against
Pa-
Patrick,
Patrick
I would still bet big against Patrick.
Well, I think Patrick clearly has flush draws in his range.
He does.
And he has a lot of flush draws given how loose he is pre. So I think we can't really go too big against him here.
he's got a lot of room to bet fold.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'll probably pick like 100. I
Yep.
think that's fine.
Looks like John's probably going to do
He's going big.
it's
One.
like 110, 115,
Yeah, 115 it looks like.
120. Yeah.
I'm still like, I don't hate this size, man. Like,
No, I
I
don't
still
hate
think
the
against
size.
like Patrick, he like calls with other hands.
Yeah.
I know like against like a more standard player, like, that would maybe fold, but I think like Patrick just like calls a lot, and like you just have a straight versus.
I think this is good instinct from Patrick to realize that like
He doesn't
He
even
doesn't
beat
certainly have
anything,
the
but
best
I don't think
hand,
he's gonna
yeah.
fold. That's just my opinion. Like Patrick, yeah. John has good instincts, man. Like that's like an exploitative bet size.
Yes.
Like
Yeah.
and I want to see more of that from these two guys.
yeah, it's not leaving
Because
anything
they're
on
the
table.
they're the better players, and that's not a knock towards anyone else on the table. These two guys are just like a little bit more studied, but like they're not like they still have holes like everyone else.
Holes I look forward to exploiting in future heads-up matches.
Man, these guys are tough.
Should wrote down some of those hands.
Matt
man.
Matt needs to just chill. Like just understand things aren't going your way, tighten your ranges, don't become a target. And just, stay confident. It's gonna be important. Like there's certain times in games where you become a mark, and Matt is like on the cusp of that happening just because nothing's going his way. He's talking like
Mhm.
not a lot, and there's no clear way that we see how he wins without making hands, and that's a dangerous spot to be in. Whenever that happens, just like take a breather, tighten up your ranges, make sure you're bringing higher equity, and that's it. So like, I know it might seem insane, but like if this was like like a more nine-handed table, like I would start folding like some of my suited connectors from early position. Like I'll just like fold because I don't think my barrels are gonna get through.
Yeah.
And it's important. It's important for your like when you have these hands that need barrel ability for your image to be intact. And right now he's just like a mark. Like not right now. Like I just think he's on that verge where if he loses another pot, things might go downhill quickly. And like Danny was in that spot a couple minutes ago, and then he just got lucky
Yeah, picked
with
up some
that
pots.
eight, and
His whole demeanor changed.
yeah. So you know, it's really insane how like the flow of live games changes like this. I think John should. I think I like this race from John, and I think it should just be like a little bigger, but whatever, fine.
This has been his button size.
Yeah, I think this is a good button size when you have Mark in the small blind. Like you're going to be wanting to raise a lot of buttons, and you have a small blind that's going to
Mhm.
that's not just capable, that will be three betting you a ton. So you want to just be risking less to take down the blinds.
Sure.
And I,
Seems good. Seems good.
perhaps also targeting Matt's big blind. If he
Yes.
thinks
I like-
Matt won't defend that much.
That is the main reason I like his size, and if that's the reason why he chose the small size, that's fine.
So it looks like we're taking a 10-15 minute break. We'll be back soon. Stay tuned, and yeah, more poker coming soon.
Yeah, I hope to see
Some action.
some war out here without these two little showdown monkeys. Man, do I go a little too hard on these guys? I don't want
So-
like
You live in New York?
No, no, I'm from Akron, Ohio.
Yeah, I don't play a lot. I don't play the clubs as much because the rate is just so high.
That's what I hear.
Yeah. So it's really hard to beat those. With some exceptions, like if there's a no-cap game, like there's no-cap games in Midtown, where businessmen a lot. They start off for 500 or 1,000, and then they rebuy they do 1,000 or 2,000. So even if they rake $15 or $20 out of the pot, stacks are so deep
Right.
that it can be lucrative.
Yeah.
But in general, people buying $300, $400, $500, you can't beat a $20 rate.
Correct.
So home games though, no rate or $2 rate, $5 rate.
Yeah.
But I also go to casinos. But if you can find a game in your neighborhood, why go all the way to Atlantic City?
There's a lot of social clubs opening in Ohio,
Mhm.
and they are
Illegal underground.
well, no, they because they don't take a rate, they're legal.
Oh, okay.
But so it's a like a $50 membership per year,
Okay.
and then a $20 door fee.
Okay.
So and that's it.
But see, in New York, the way the Constitution's written, it's you can't profit from gambling. So people have tried to find ways around, like try to do time, try to do membership fee. And if the cops really want to bust you, they'll say, it doesn't matter how you're getting the money.
Right.
You're profiting from gambling. And as long as poker is defined as gambling, and in California they fought that because they said it's game skill. In New York, it's never been anything but gambling. They're always vulnerable.
Yeah.
The casinos in Atlantic City want it that way, right?
Oh, absolutely.
They want that monopoly.
Yeah.
That's so weird to see myself like that. Get over it.
It's awesome though. Isn't
Yeah, it is. It's really cool. That's why I pay $100 to be here.
Yeah. I'm still shocked you're not playing.
I want to.
No casino.
I don't think they'll let me.
Adding another player helps them, I would think, help them commentate on situations.
Yeah, it's true.
Playing the game, Nick?
I want to.
You not allowed to? Is it foreign?
I assume so.
Oh, shit.
I wasn't even gonna bother them about it.
Because we're at only 6 games. 7 is the primo number.
I like 6 to 8. 9, 10 is too much, and I don't like 4. I can do 5.
Yeah.
I actually like four-handed a lot if you have 3 blinds.
Ah, shit.
It's pretty fun.
Button for punishment.
Because then if you straddle, you're straddling on the button, which is really fun. And you still have 4 people in each hand. like the normal approach doesn't work. So I'm thinking of like different ways to reach out to my friends.
Stamps is here?
Daniel ate something he's allergic to. Cup of sesame seeds. He's allergic to sesame seeds. He couldn't. Yeah, I mean that's sort of what happened.
That's sort of what happened.